Crystal Castles, although that guy's canceled now, but he wasn't canceled at the time.
Okay.
I'm trying to sound cool by saying
What does
canceled.
that mean?
I think it means like you're over. The internet has found out you're a dirtbag, and so you're no longer.
Funny.
Yeah, which is good. You should be canceled if you're a dirtbag.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
that's a good term.
Welcome to the show. Have we got a treat for you? A relic from a more innocent time. 1 year ago, almost a year ago to the day. I'm not exactly sure. I think this was recorded on a Tuesday, like 1 week after I wrapped up the last season. This is myself talking to Chad Peck of the band Kestrels on the patio of the local in Halifax. Pre-COVID-19, pre a lot of things. I was in town for the creative music workshop, and we sat down, had some beers on the patio. No idea what the world had in store for us. There are a couple of points where you can actually hear a jazz band playing inside the restaurant. So anyhow, this is coming out now on the occasion of Kestrels' new album, Dream or Don't Dream, which we talk about in the episode. This was originally supposed to come out in the fall, and the record was going to come out in November, which you'll hear about. What I've seen of it looks and sounds great. They've got a few copies left of the splatter. It's like rainbow splatter vinyl. Mascis of Dinosaur Jr. plays some guitar on the record. So we get into how that happened and what that was like. He also talks about meeting Steve Albini. So Chad is also somebody I've known since my university days. We happen to live across the hall from each other in first year, and we were both like guys who play guitar and interested in a similar kind of music. So lots of fun tales from that time. If you're not familiar with Chad, he's in the band Kestrels. He also has run the label Noise Records out of Halifax/Truro, I suppose, for probably going on 15 years now. He's put out a bunch of music by a bunch of cool East Coast bands. We'll have links to all that stuff in the show notes, learndrums.ca, Learn Drums on Instagram. You can find Kestrels, Kestrels Band on Instagram, Kestrels, HFX on Twitter, Kestrels on Facebook for the old timers. Special thanks to my brother Micah, who edited and mixed this episode. I think he did a bang-up job. Real pleased not to have to do it myself. All right, enjoy.
But these things are so directional. I have found, like, even if you like do this kind of thing,
Right.
the voice can really cut out.
Okay, I'll try to stay on the capsule here. 1, 2. Hey, 1, 2. Trying not to get my beer slurping sounds in here either.
So what did you want to talk about?
I don't know. What do you want to talk about?
That was my canned line. How'd I do?
It was amazing. Yeah, it made me scared for a second, and then I was in on the joke, and then it felt good. So
All right.
awesome.
Now the listeners are in on the joke.
Yeah.
We were hanging out. It's funny because, like, when I do these, do you find also that there's, like, as soon as it's recording, there's all of a sudden is a pressure? Like,
Oh,
before
for
we were just
sure.
hanging out talking, and now it's like,
We had a lot of gold. We should have probably recorded the pre-roll too.
I was
because-
thinking about that, but I didn't know if the mics would actually pick it up.
Yeah, that's fine. We'll catch our groove.
That's right. We were hanging out on the patio at the local in Halifax. It's nice out here.
Beautiful, beautiful summer day. 2 in a row. I was
2 in a
I was
row,
in the ocean
baby.
yesterday
Were you?
in Queensland Beach.
Queensland, Australia.
It was a quick trip.
Yeah.
Made it back in time for the pod.
Hanging out with the chats.
Oh my.
Where's Queensland Beach in Nova Scotia?
It's like heading. It's not the South Shore, but it's heading in that direction. That the 103. No, not the 103. 101. I can't remember which highway it's on. It's down, heading toward the South Shore.
Right.
And it was beautiful. First, like really nice day of summer, 35 degrees or something. So it was very busy, but
Yeah.
got in the ocean.
Did you? Was the water cold?
They said it was like 17 degrees at 10 a.m. We didn't get there till like 3:30 or 4. It was good. Like the first tow in was not pleasant, but
Right.
we were head first after that, so it was
Yeah?
good. Yeah.
You acclimated?
Very quickly, as one does. at my advancing age.
Advancing age.
Yeah.
I was gonna ask, but I don't want to out myself.
How old am I? I'm going to be 37 in 2 months.
Are
3
you?
months, yeah.
When's your birthday?
October 11th.
Okay.
4 months.
Mine's wow. I just realized mine is a month away. My
You're gonna be
birthday's in
37?
August. Yeah, I'm gonna be 37.
Doesn't feel that bad.
No, it doesn't feel bad. It feels fine, honestly. I feel better now than I did probably at any point in my 20s. Like,
There was a time in my 20s where I thought that your life kind of peaks around 30, and then it very naively I felt that, and then it was a slow decline for the next 60 years or something. And I realized in the last 2 years especially, it's just been oh no, things are amazing and just get better and better. So.
yeah, I thought that too. And it's funny. I remember the summer after finishing university, living in Charlottetown, and I had a coworker at my job, and I was working in 2 places. I don't know what I always worry that I can't say names of things. But anyway, I was working
for legal
2 spots.
reasons.
Yeah, I don't know. I'll get in trouble somehow. But one of them was a bar, and it was a hot nightclub hotspot. And I was at my other job that was an arts place. I worked at the Guild, so it was an arts place. And there was a sketch comedy show that would happen there. I think it was weekly for a while. But I just remember talking to somebody who was a friend of the guys in the show. And she's like, so do you work here full time? I was like, no, a couple days a week. And then I'm at this other spot the rest of the time. And she's like, oh, yeah, I don't really go there anymore. I don't really like it. It's such a young crowd. And she was 27. And I remember being 22, 23 at the time thinking, that sucks. Yeah. I would hate to be that old.
Yeah.
And I thought that. And now I think that, and it's no, I just wouldn't go there.
Yeah, no. Yeah, it's a weird, I don't know, it's a weird comfort and I don't know, everything just feels a bit better. Cool,
Yeah.
Cool with yourself finally, it's all these weird things about me are just fine and it's okay.
Totally. And
as opposed to trying to push them down for a decade. It's oh no, that's who I am.
yeah. And everyone is weird and it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's partially because you still do get it, especially with the internet. You can't escape it as much, or if you are in a band or something, you have some kind of public capacity. But you also actually, I was going to say you're not in that forced socialization mode as much as when you're in a kid and you're shoved in this group of 30 other people who just happen to be your same age and live in the same place. That's all you have in common necessarily. And then, lunchtime is 200 other kids your age or whatever. And so you do find your people within that, but then there's a lot of social pressure that comes along with it.
Big time. And to me that followed me pretty far. Kind of I always kind of lived in weird places and far away from things. So I was always a little bit of an outsider.
Yeah, me too.
Not very good at parties. I had a hard time. People get a lot of energy from networking and and I was man, I'm trying to do this and I do not enjoy this process.
Are you an introvert?
Yeah, big time.
You
For the
get
most
energy
part.
from quiet? Well, I remember you classically being the guy who didn't want to party.
Yeah, for sure.
In first year university. So for those not in the know,
This
Chad
is our
and
Pantera talk coming up.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, the that topic has been cleared with management. We can go there. Chad and I lived across the hall from each other in first year university, St. FX, Antigonish, Nova Scotia. And so I definitely went there with the intention of partying. I was a guy who I was I was the oldest kid in my family, and my parents were pretty strict with me. Compared to all my friends, I really felt and we lived out in the country.
Me too.
Yeah. So my friends
Weird.
who were lived in town, if somebody was buying beer, it was easier to get in on that. If people were going to a party, it's easier to hop in with somebody. But for me, I had to make all that stuff happen for myself. So a lot of the time it just didn't happen. So I was once I got the chance to get out on my own, I specifically went there because, it was a couple of reasons. A few reasons. I didn't really want to go to school, but all I wanted to do was play music. And they had a music program. My high school music teacher recommended it to me because he played in a band called the Jive Kings.
Sick
And-
name.
Yeah. And their drummer couldn't, like when they would play shows off island, as we say in PEI, their drummer couldn't make it. So the drum teacher at St. FX would fill in with them. And so he recommended it to me, and I didn't really know anybody. Like, I knew 2 people from my high school that were going there, as opposed to, like, UPEI, like,
Right.
half my grad class goes there.
Yeah.
Mount A fairly substantial chunk of my high school classmates went there. UMB, I wasn't going to go to. Acadia didn't seem like a strong option.
Acadia to me at that time was like they had laptops. Every student got a
Yeah.
laptop. I was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
You get a laptop?
And it was like
Cost
$6,000 a year, which probably is quaint now. I have no idea how much university costs.
But it seemed very extravagant at the time.
Yeah. But anyway, my friend, Chris Burnsy DeRoche, had
I forgot about him.
he had a friend who was older who went to St. FX. He's like, oh, you got to go there. I'm going there. You live in McIsaac. It's the party house.
I remember the day my parents moved me into McIsaac Hall. I picked St. FX like basically like so many things in my life. It's just like, sure, that sounds good. I'll do that.
Yeah.
Like I was accepted to a couple places. And like I kind of had an anti-Halifax slant at that time. And I don't even really know
Right.
why. Just because I think it was like everything else, everyone else was doing it. So I'm like, oh, I'll do something different.
Yeah,
then.
totally.
And anyway, the day we moved into McIsaac Hall, when we became next door neighbors,
Yeah.
they had Welcome to the Jungle playing, like kind of like pawn shop, like speakers, but like they had them somehow like linked up through different floors or something. So
Yeah.
I felt like maybe I'm making this up. The song was definitely played. I was like, what the hell did I get myself into?
Amazing.
And the first night we were there was like a whole bunch of hazing stuff, if you remember
Yeah.
that stuff. But I remember like laying in my bed and like the wildest party I'd ever seen at that point was happening on our floor. And I was like, trembling, like what is happening? Like, I was like from the country, I was like, and I was a pretty naive guy probably at that point. It's like, what the hell did I do? Like, what is this all about?
Oh,
And-
that's so funny, man. Because it was like, exactly. For me, it was like, bring it on. This is what, like, I remember walking into, like, they were, checking people in, and the House president and vice president were there, and they introduced themselves. And so the first is like this guy with like earrings and an eyebrow ring. He's like, "What's up, man? I'm the House president. I'm Butch." And then the other dude is like, "I'm the vice president. My name's Balls." I was like, yes, this is the spot. But then what happens is that, you spend the next, if you're me, you spend the next decade discovering that you have no idea how to drink, like you can't hold your liquor. The point of like partying should not be to just try and consume as much of whatever as you possibly can.
like most of the people on our floor, that seemed to be, it was an Olympic event.
yeah.
Essentially. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I was like really interested in like English literature, and so that was kind of my, and I made some really good friends like in English world from those 4 years. 6 I was there for 6 years actually, but
Yeah, I was there 5. Because
Yeah.
you did an education
I did,
degree.
yeah.
Did proximity have anything to do with your decision to attend there?
no, it was like equidistant from where I grew up,
Right.
Halifax and Antigonish are kind of similar. I don't know. I bought a house almost 5 years ago, and it's kind of like on a whim. I was like, sure, that sounds good. It's like a lot of things I do seem to work out if I just say, that sounds good, let's do it.
Yeah.
And so I think my life would be very different, obviously, if I'd have started off at Dow or whatever. So
Yeah, likewise. There was a long time where I was like, man, I really screwed up. Like, that was not the right choice. I did it for the wrong reasons. And then I got like, because I knew from the day I got there that I wasn't like there to become a
right.
jazz guy
Yeah.
for my life. But I always assumed that it was like, that's a class and you do what you do in class and then you go home and have your normal life and that's fine.
I remember being so jealous. What was your band called at that time?
Grade 7 Push Fight. Oh, wait a minute. Sofa Kings?
That's the one, yeah. And you guys used to play at Chuggles, is that what that place is called?
Oh, no. Sofa Kings was like my band from PEI that we could never get together.
Oh, no, there was a group you used to play with in Antigonish.
Yeah, that was Grade 7 Push Fight.
Yeah, yeah. And
Yeah.
like I remember so many people would go to your guys' shows and stuff, and it seemed I was like so jealous.
Oh, it was amazing. But it was funny because we were so lucky in that sense, and we didn't really understand because it was just all our friends who would
Right.
come. But by the end of it, yeah, we had a crowd. And
Yeah,
then,
totally.
And then we came to Halifax with the expectation of that carrying over, and then you got to start from the bottom
Oh, yeah.
again. But you had a band the whole time.
Yeah. That was like my first band was like called the Scurvy Dogs.
The Scurvy Dogs.
Yeah, and
How old were you?
Like grade I might be misremembering history. I'm trying to like get the timeline right here. Scurvy Dogs was my first group. Yeah, and that was like covering like Nirvana
Yeah.
and
Did you play Lithium?
No Effects. No, we were more like maybe In Bloom was kind of one of our go-to. Maybe Tourette's was a big one.
Oh, yeah, we
because
did
it was
Tourette's.
Yeah, it's like less than 2 minutes and 3 chords, which is pretty important when you're, you get your first distortion pedal. You just want to like act like you're a rock star.
Yeah,
Once you're
man.
not. And
I
someone's
really
like,
think, though,
shit.
it's a huge part of why those bands are so important, because I think especially in that era, like Nirvana and Green Day, and it's funny because Nirvana they have this hallowed place
Yeah.
in like rock and roll history, whatever that's even worth at this point. But Green Day, on the other hand, have like, sure, they're successful, but they're not a cool band.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm a high school teacher, and like a lot of kids still love Green Day, but it's not the same. It doesn't have the same cultural cachet or whatever as Nirvana for whatever reason.
But what's great about those bands and that music is when you're learning to play guitar, it's like you can play those songs.
Totally. And the lead, like, I do have a tape somewhere. My poor mother, who like endured a lot of Nirvana when I was like in grade 9, like hated every second of it. I have a tape somewhere of like me learning the guitar solo to Smells Like Teen Spirit, and her barging into my room saying like, "Why are you playing that over and over again?" I really should find that at some point. Yeah, anyway, yeah, so that was my first group. And the band Antagonist was like kind of like a holdover from high school. We tried to do, like, we went to some studios and stuff, but I didn't really know how to write songs. And we played a Battle of the Bands at St. FX once. That was fun. But it was like making up words.
Right, yeah, I remember seeing that show.
Got to write up in the casket. No, not the casket. The St. FX, the St. FX student newspaper, whatever it was called. We played at the Inn, yeah.
Yeah.
They busted out my Fender Strat.
Totally, yeah, I remember that show. I remember you ripping it up, man, because
Really?
like,
oh man, I remember
because you could play leads, right? Like you
a
could
little
solo.
bit. It's basically my MO still. It's just like get to the ripping solo
Get to
part.
the solo. The song is just window dressing for the solo.
It's true.
I mean, it like that idea like dissipated. I was like, for a Satriani-esque player such as yourself.
What we really need to talk about, can I interrupt for a second? We need to
do.
talk about Cemetery Gates by Pantera.
So it's funny that you mention your mom like not being into the Nirvana, because I remember specifically a time in my life when I was convinced that was the greatest piece of music that had ever been written, and I couldn't understand why my parents didn't feel the same way, and I thought there was something wrong with them. We're like, that sucks for them.
Yeah. I just remember you playing the pinch harmonic in the main after it gets heavy, or not heavy.
Yeah.
But and I was like, what is happening? And like I remember you were like one of the first people I remember like listening to music for like the production. Like I like listen to records all the time, but I remember you saying like, I think it was like a Tool record. You're like, man, these guitars are in mono. Like it's just like up the middle, or I think that's what you said. I could be making that up, but
yeah, right. No, that was Tool Enema, which I actually bought. I bought that. Here's a funny story of the time. So the summer before I went to university, I got an eyebrow ring, and
Awesome.
the ball that like closes it fell out at some point in my first week or two there, and there's no piercing shop in Antigonish, so Matt McDonald and I hitchhiked.
Eyes Matt? Was he Eyes Matt?
He was Curly Matt. Yeah. There were two guys named Matt on our floor, and the girls had nicknames for both of them. Yes, Curly Matt and I hitchhiked to New Glasgow to go. I wanted to go to the piercing shop and like get a new bead for my eyebrow ring, which later grew out, and I was upset about at the time. And now, in hindsight, I'm happy about.
Solid choice, yeah.
Yeah, but anyway, I think we went to like the mall, and I bought that Tool CD at Zeller's, and I had never listened to Tool before. But it is mixed in mono. You're right.
Yeah.
And I found that really weird.
Right.
Because I just couldn't, like, I was used to, like, guitars, there being a left and right guitar. But I was listening to it on my Discman.
Yeah. It's weird, yeah, because I think that was, like, early internet, too. So, I mean,
Yeah.
there was probably Napster, like, 2000. Was that Napster starting?
But before MP3 players were common.
Yeah, yeah. So, it was probably the first time I, like, started stockpiling music, like, sitting on, like, IRC at, like, 5 a.m. to get good download speeds.
Oh, you had that. I wasn't that clued in. I knew that existed, but I couldn't figure out how to do it.
Yeah, I mean, too much time alone probably, but yeah. But then it was like the mass consumption. It's like I'm gonna download every new album that comes out on a Friday or Tuesday, probably at that time. But you know, it's weird, bad codecs for MP3 files at that time. And
Oh,
stuff.
I know. They sound like they're underwater.
The hi hats are always like swashing around.
Yeah.
Anyway,
All right. So, Chad.
enough of a history lesson.
Yeah, I was going to say, so how do you get from, what was the band that I saw you with? I want to say Lifetimes 10, but that's from PEI.
It's times 10, yeah.
Times 10.
Yeah, yeah.
Right. Okay, cool. Yeah.
I like, because I grew up, this is my like romanticizing just like probably what was a very boring life that I was leading, but I listened to records all the time because I was like, I lived in the woods, which I still do, and I didn't have, I was not super social, so it was like, just like listening to, and like really, really trying to listen to them and like figure out what was happening, what was going on, with the goal of like maybe making a demo someday or something. So for Christmas one year, my mom gave me $50 at a local recording studio, like a gift certificate. We never did anything with that group at the time, but we rented like an 8-track. It wasn't a mini. I think it might have been a mini disc.
Okay.
It was like some weird format now that I can't remember what it was. It wasn't cassette, and it wasn't, I feel like it was digital somehow, but I don't remember what the format was. Anyway.
But before like digital audio is really common.
Yeah,
and
yeah. I think it was like right before the Boss self-contained things or whatever, maybe around that time. And we started doing like demos, and I was like, even at that time, I was like 15 or 16, collecting like guitar pedals and like trying to make different sounds and like figure out how things worked and like I remember the day my friend Andrew figured out how to pan things, and he's like, oh my God, the whole world is open now because we can pan things left and right. So it was a lot of just like experimentation, I guess, which is not my favorite word, but just kind of like.
Would you consider yourself a pioneer of experimental music?
I would say, yeah, I'm a noise guy.
Yeah.
I'm a noise guy. So that was a whole bunch of like stuff that never really went anywhere, but we like worked really hard on it and tried to like, I was into like multi-tracking even at that time. It wasn't like we'd progressed beyond like hanging the mic from the ceiling of the shed and like recording it onto like a cassette recorder to like actually trying to like overdub or whatever. But it went nowhere. And then I like didn't do anything. I went to school, and then I got a loan from this thing called Students in Business, which is like the Chamber of Commerce in Truro. They gave me $5,000 to start a record label and a recording studio, which I don't know how I convinced them to do that.
That's amazing.
I had to have a marketing plan, and this was like long before I knew how to like sort of like fumble my way through such things. Like, anyway, so I got like an early version of Pro Tools and a website, and then I was in a band at that time called Safety Scissors, which we had to change our name to the Medium Mood,
Right.
which we might have played together at some point.
Yeah,
maybe.
totally. That was like early Halifax days
Yeah,
for me.
yeah. I was like,
why'd you have to change your name?
there was like a French DJ called Safety Scissors that was on Warp Records maybe or something.
Right.
I think that's what it was. I can't remember. And I remember getting a very official letter or an email like, oh, like this actually could be problems for us down the road. So, and then I just like, went to my parents' cottage and made an 8-track EP there with like Pro Tools. Kind of just like, I've had a version of that. My studio's like grown up quite a bit since then, but it was like I just was like into making it happen. It's like And at that time, my like goal was like, if you have a website, basically Field of Dreams. Like if you build it, they will come. So if you record it, they will listen, which was not true at all.
Yeah, that's what every band goes through. Though.
Yeah, but it felt like, oh man, we have a website and a real CD. Like it's gonna happen.
Bring on the fame, the riches.
Bring on the fame. And we had, we went on tours and had fun. And it was like a lot of the people in that group, like Andrew McPherson or Andrew Gordon, I guess he goes by now, like he's had a great career in music. And he's doing video game music for like, he's with Wade McNeil from Alexis on Fire. They do a lot of like soundtrack stuff together.
Really?
And he has a studio in Toronto.
Wow.
And Adam Hartling, who drummed in Kestrels, the first version. He's played in a bunch of bands like Crypto Rips and graphic design stuff. He's, it was kind of cool that we all kept doing something creative. Because at that time, like 2006, 2007, it's like pre-social media. There might have been like an early version of Facebook, but I don't even think there was.
There was.
Maybe there was.
Like I remember the switch from MySpace to Facebook.
MySpace, okay.
Yeah. And like MySpace was it, but then MySpace changed their thing and it became super hard to use. And then I already kind of didn't like it anyway.
Yeah, it seemed exciting at the time, and like rearranging your top 8 friends.
Oh, I know. Yeah, we would do that.
Yeah. And like seeing how many plays you got. That was kind of fun.
Yeah.
And it was like the only game in town in a way. So it was kind of we booked tours kind of through MySpace initially, and
we definitely lined up shows and like got to play with, like, we played a show in Montreal with a band. They were called Silver Starling.
Okay.
Which, like, one of the members is in Arcade Fire now.
No way.
The drummer is in, like, Soons, or however you say that band. And just, we didn't know that. They were just, like, a local band that we hit up on MySpace.
Yeah.
And they agreed to do it.
Yeah.
The singer is Marcus Peckin. He is a producer. He produces, like, I don't know. He produced like a local natives album that I'm aware of. But he's like an indie producer in Montreal. And like I still kind of don't understand why they did it, because they're like nobody turned up, but maybe they were a new band and looking for shows. It was a side project for all these people, and they were just looking to get out and play. But they also were like, cool, yeah. And then if we come out to Halifax, we'll hit you guys up. Like,
please don't do that.
You probably will have more draw than we do.
Yeah, I know. And it's like, I mean, I still kind of have it a little bit anyway, but that like idea, you show up in some town and like something cool is going to happen. Even though you go to like Montreal the first time, and like I remember we went there and there was some band we played with and they were like Matlock Records adjacent or something. I saw their like demo I bought. It was $2. I have it at home somewhere. Like, man, they were in this other amazing band. This is going to be the best night ever. And like we get there and the guy like brought in a Wurlitzer or something, like it was crazy. Like just seemed like a bizarre commitment to the show that we were about to play. But then like, 3 people showed, and Mackenzie Ogilvy from The Plan, he came, he's a friend of mine. I don't think he might be telling this story. He came into the bar and like didn't want to pay, so he like stood at the door and watched the show.
Oh my God. That's so funny. But I get it, especially if you play in bands, you've been in bands, you know how it all works.
Yeah, it's weird, and it's like,
to a point. How much was cover?
Oh, it's probably like $7, which in 2007 was like, that's a big ask, I think.
Yeah.
I feel like ticket prices haven't really changed in Halifax since I started playing music.
No, they haven't. I mean, I kind of feel like they haven't changed anywhere.
Yeah, touring seems like it's going to be... it's always like this mythical adventure, and then sometimes it's amazing, and you get to a place and you're like, this is so good. I remember like playing in Toronto on one of our... We had an EP out and a lot of publicity, and I was like getting played on the radio and like played to the bartender basically. And it's like, oh man, it's rough.
Well, you get there and you discover that you don't matter. Like I remember going to Toronto and having the realization, because it was just after Winter Sleep, Welcome to the Night Sky had come out, and it was their biggest album ever, and it was like Way to Ghost, and it was like kind of controversial locally because up to that point they had been like an underdog band, and now they came out with this super poppy song and it's a hit for them. And there had always been some people who didn't like them, but it really seemed to
polarize people.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. But then you get to Toronto and you discover those guys don't matter here.
Yeah.
And like they have fans, sure, but they're not like the big game in town by any stretch.
Yeah, I think now I think they do very well.
Oh, I think so too. Yeah.
Yeah, it's weird. And it's like we've done some cool things in my band Kestrels, but they've never been really buzzy. So it's like that's the big, especially in those like markets, as we say.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's kind of the big thing. Are you buzzy or not? And if you're not, it's kind of like
Nobody cares.
yeah, it's a crapshoot.
Yeah, well, nobody cares because there's no obvious way to make money off you, and it's
Yeah.
like it sucks to find that out. You're like, you mean you don't like look at my potential and get excited about it? And I know because we found that too. And the other thing about like the kind of buzz that you can have as somebody who's just out doing it, like you don't really know what your impact is because like some people will come up and tell you they liked the show, and that's nice, but a lot of people. Maybe they loved it and they just didn't tell you.
Sure.
They're not posting about it. They're not. So you have no idea that those people
No.
even exist.
And you see like there are things like I don't know. You see things online, or people will send me emails once in a while with these like super like heartfelt messages. And like, man, that's awesome.
It's amazing,
Because that's
right?
how I felt, and I still
Yeah.
feel about music on some, on every level, I guess. But yeah, it's hard to know what makes. And then you go see bands who are like buzzy, and it's like there's like a weird people. I guess what I would say on that is like people like music for a lot of different reasons.
Yes.
And to me, music is like a very like, this is cheesy, and I'm gonna hate myself for saying this later, but it's like a very sacred thing where it's like it's really been like a critical element of my life since I was old enough to like start understanding the world. And it's like I've understood it through music, and there's like records that have like bookmarked periods of my life. And some people like to play music because they don't want to get a job, or they like need to feel loved by a bunch of people. It's fine. It's just different.
Yeah, totally. I agree. And that's a thing for me too that you got to, because it's funny, once you start getting out into the industry, everybody tells you the thing that they beat you over the head with is you need to understand you're not an artist, you're a brand, and you are a business, and you may have these ideas about what it is you think you're doing, but if you want to be successful, you have to operate like a business. And that is how business works.
Sure.
But it's funny, since like stepping back from our own band, like I've had to rediscover that in my life.
Yeah.
And it's funny, yeah, it is like there are different reasons for doing it for sure.
Yeah.
And the reason that you got into it is never the reason, like it's not for that.
Yeah, I mean, I struggle with that, and I have probably a bit of a, if I'm being open and honest, which why would I not be open and honest, a judgmental slant on that a little bit. I try to like work, because people should do whatever they want, for sure.
Yeah.
Like that's absolutely the best thing. They should do whatever they want. There are like obvious cloying moves people make to.
Yes.
And I just remember having this debate with that the first kind of band that toured that I was in. We were making a record, and someone's like, we need to put sub hits in the song because everyone, like Alexis on Fire, puts sub hits in their records. And I was thinking, like, I think we should probably look a little. This is like a one time in my life I was right about something. I was like, I think we should probably look a little bit longer term than sub hits in 2007. Like, I think that's probably not going to be something that like it might work kind of momentarily, but it's going to be like acid wash jeans, basically.
Right.
And so my band has never been like.
That's cool, man.
Yeah, I mean, but people should do what they want, and obviously they're like we just finished a record, we got it mastered, and it's very, very. Our last record was like super manicured and super like tight and super. And now this record's not tight, but it's like it's looser feeling in a lot of ways, which is not what's popular, Like I was listening to the Vampire Weekend record, which I do like.
Yeah.
I'm embarrassed to admit that a little bit too, but
Oh, really?
I don't know why, but I think it's great.
It
There's,
is,
like-
well, it's funny because it's very pop. It's very like there's something very commercial about it, even though there is also like some weird stuff.
Yeah.
They take like the new elements, but like indie them up in their own style, and some of the hooks are so good.
Oh, it's an amazing record. I'm not
Yeah.
embarrassed, actually. I regret saying that too.
Well,
but-
no, but I know what you mean. Because it's like you feel like trendy or mainstream or.
yeah. So I guess it's like there are decisions people make, and I guess I'm old enough to remember like when everyone had a DJ in their band, or when everyone was getting
Totally.
Ibanez guitars tuned into A and like, you know,
Or like skinny jeans and white belts and slanty haircuts.
totally.
Like,
I did have a white belt, I will admit to that, and a slanty haircut. But
oh, dude, I used to spike my hair up and wear cargo pants.
yeah,
like
sick. Anyway, so people see what they want. I just, people are into it for very different reasons, and I think growing up with like these like super like with Nirvana stuff, to like circle back to that slightly, there was like this super like earnest or emotional element to a lot of stuff, and maybe that was all cloying as well. I don't know, but I just like to think of music. It's just like it's sacred, and that's a cheesy word, and I hate it, but it's what it feels like.
But it's also true.
It's just true, yeah.
Yeah, I think if you lose sight of that, like, I think, and it just is like the shitty thing about existing in a world that is driven by commerce or capitalism or even just money.
Yeah.
That like you can't. It's not really set up to like trade art for food or housing or
Yeah.
whatever. Like you need a way to get the money that like
Yeah.
pays for the rest of your life. But when it becomes more about that, that's when it sucks. And you can always tell because it's not transparent. And people, it's like it doesn't feel good. And you can tell when somebody else is doing it versus being sincere. But I think ultimately, if you can figure out how to run in such a way that like business is business and that's part of it. But when you're on stage, when you're in the recording studio, that's art.
Rad. Sick, yeah. No, for sure. I mean, we've been lucky enough, or I've been lucky enough to have songs that have done well on radio, and, you know, the business side of it has worked, and we've worked with good producers and, like, all kinds of awesome people.
It also has just gotten harder, too. Like, unless you are, like, making hip-hop or electronic pop music, then you have a chance to go huge.
Yeah.
But otherwise, you are just grinding it out.
No, for sure. And I mean, like I was sort of mentioning earlier, like I could have made different choices on this new record. And I was like, you know, recognizing where I am in my career. Like I'm an English teacher and I have a very solid and like successful career there. And it's like, I don't want to be like posting on Instagram 30 times a day.
Yeah.
Like my record's still going to come out. Like, we worked with this guy, John in Yellow, on this new one, who's mixed like Always and Dinosaur Jr. and Sonic
totally.
Youth and bands that I love. And he was amazing to work with and thrilled to work with me on it. And it's like, what more, you know? This is a weird thing that if you like have a job, that means you're not being true to yourself.
I
or
know.
something,
I've had that, like, I have just given myself a hard time over it. But the thing is, like, is being on tour, playing songs that have lost all of their meaning for the 10 millionth time, like, somehow more honorable?
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just, like, I think it's, like, I just love making records.
Yeah, totally.
And I've set myself up in a way to make records and,
Yeah.
like, not... I can retire someday probably, too, you know?
Especially here, too, like, on the East Coast. And it's funny because I feel like we grew up in a bit of a bubble, and I certainly didn't realize it, where I read that Joel Plaskett biography that came out a couple years ago.
I haven't read that yet, no.
It's good. But I found, like, the first half of it I found really fascinating because they're talking about the East Coast music scene and how there was no real precedent for success before those, like, early 90s, like Thresh Hermit, Sloan, like that era.
Right.
Bands like that, just like you wouldn't even consider that you could have any kind of success being a band from here. You know, they're the stories of the people who moved away to make it, but nobody from here. And to me, like, I was, I don't know, 12 when Sloan was like coming out with one chord to another. I was in junior high for sure. So that just seemed normal.
Yeah. Yeah, and it seemed with kind of like, again, I don't want to keep circling back to Nirvana, but it seemed within reach. It's like, oh, I can play these songs. Like, now I can't sing like any of the people in Sloan or write those. Someone told me that Patrick Pentland's first song he ever wrote was 500 Up, and I was like,
what?
How do you come out of the gate with that? That could be a myth that someone told me, but I kind of believe it in a way. Yeah, I don't know. I just feel like I just have an impulse to like make music. I just like I'll be an old man shuffling around in some nursing home, hoping someone comes to visit me, but still like tuning the guitar and trying to do something cool with it.
Yep.
And I'll keep making records. I don't know. I just feel like in a good place with it, I guess, because I don't have the pressure. The pressure's internal to make something great and that I'm proud of and to like do something better each time. But the pressure, like I don't have the anxiety of like aging out of the scene, which I feel is like a lot of what happens to people, which is unfortunate, I guess.
Yeah, man. Well, I think it's funny that you mentioned that, but I feel like honoring that impulse is ultimately more important than trying to, especially now, like brand your way into a career or something.
Yeah.
The thing that I got burnt out on doing it with our band was at a certain point, you're like, well, I didn't pick up drumsticks so that I could be an amateur digital marketer.
Totally, yeah.
You know, and that's what you wind up spending more time doing.
Yeah, and I mean, you do want to like, when you make a record or make a song or whatever, like, you do want to, this is a gross word, you want to have some sort of strategy, right? Like, you need to have something. Like, we've hired publicists and radio pluggers or whatever, and that's been super useful. You don't want it to just, like, sit on Bandcamp and hope that...
Yeah, because nobody will hear it. Well, because there is a certain point, like, I think it's not necessarily a bad thing, it's just, but it may have negative associations, and... you may, it's all what you want to do with it. Like, I think if your intentions are good or pure or whatever,
Right.
like if your goal is just you want a lot of people to hear it, those tools are now within reach,
Sure.
but they still have to know about it.
Yeah. No, and like, yeah, I mean, it's hard to... Yeah. Again, it's almost like why I went to St. Effects instead of the city or something. It's like... people want to like have this hyper tight brand for their group, and I'm like, I don't want to do that. Like, I just don't. We'll have some angle, and there's like a story behind this record that I think is pretty cool. But I don't know. It's hard to think that way, and like,
Well,
it's
I
hard to
think
do it. It's hard to do it and be sincere, kind of.
Yep.
I guess, and that kind of bugs me because
I think there's a danger in thinking that you need to do that too. Like, I do feel like it should be okay. Like, if you want to go that route, that is a specific path, and that will take you down a specific road. And if that's what you're looking to do, that's how you do it. But if that's not what you're looking to do, don't worry about it. Like, there's not a lot of people saying that.
Yeah, I know. It's a weird, and like...
There's a lot of people saying, like, you need to be posting more, you need to figure out your branding, you need to...
I know, so weird. And I just think...
Algorithm.
And maybe if you're like 18, it makes sense or something.
Yeah,
like,
sure.
if you're... my age, I think there are like people who like my band and like maybe like my guitar playing or my guitar pedals or something. Like there's like people that are kind of into that part of it, but
that's true of any band though. There are people who love it for the gear.
Yeah, I know. But I don't know that it's like, I think realistically it's just like, it can come off a little like, I don't want, this might need to get cut out of here. I don't know. But it can be just like a little like, it's just so obvious to the average. There are like, 7 billion people on the planet or something. There are probably 2,000 people that will listen to your record just because they kind of like music, right?
Yeah.
And that's probably all you need to do to like, you can sell a vinyl to 1/10 of those or 1/100th of those maybe. No, 1/10. I'm not a math teacher. And like, you can probably have a pretty cool career. Like it's great.
Yes, I think so. Well, and so then the flip side is also like we talk about like the having a job versus like the purity of, especially now as like the economics have gone the way that they've gone. The way to really, if you are committed to like I only play my music, it's my only job, seems to be that now you embrace the corporate sponsorship.
Totally.
Like get your music placed in a commercial.
Yeah. We've done that a couple times and it's been, it's lucrative.
Yeah.
And I'm talking to like altruistically about music in this interview. I guess I'm like, you do need to be smart business wise. Like I realized very quickly after spending some time in recording studios, like I need to have my own recording studio. There's no way to get the results that I want that we're going to be able to spend that much money. My investment's better to like start building up a studio. So that has cut down, like, our records sound better because of that, but it also has cut down. Like, it was a smart business move early on that I figured out.
Right. Well, but that's also knowing your own willingness to put in the work to make sure that you get there.
Yeah, and maybe it does take me always like 2 years to make a record, but you need some business acumen to make it happen for sure.
Just in life.
Yeah, it's for sure. There's just like a tipping point where it's like, what? Like, are you? And again, people should do what they want, and I stress that so I don't forget it. But like,
But it's like you can tell when someone is networking at you, or it's like you play a show with the band that's like they got their banner behind them and they're like us on Facebook.
I know, I know. I mean, ultimately, you kind of want that, obviously, but like, the steps you take to get there are just kind of
totally.
And I guess I also work with teenagers, right? So like, I kind of see how they use the internet. I've kind of always been in tune to that because I've always worked with kids. So
that's the great thing about teaching, isn't it? Like that's
true.
What I found about teaching like music lessons or whatever is exactly that you don't get disconnected from that culture as you get older.
Yeah, but one thing is cool. Like I'm like, you know, this might be more of my own personality that I'm talking about here, but kids now, like if I see they'll show me their Spotify playlist or whatever, and it's like they'll like go from the Eagles to like, you know, like Drake or something, or Lil Peep, R.I.P.
Yeah.
They have these weird, like, super diverse tastes in music, which I think is because of their access to it. It's like when I was a kid, it was like if I had $25, I could go buy one CD. I would like.
You buy one NoFX CD and you might like it.
Yeah, for sure. Or you tell yourself you liked it at least. Yeah, but it's like it's kind of cool that way. They're way less like. Probably like judgy than I was when I was a kid in that regard too. So it's good. Yeah,
it's funny.
The kids are okay.
Like self-judgmental in a paranoid way, and it gave me a weird kind of perspective on things when I ran into people who were like judgy just about music, in the sense of like I was interested in the guitar, so I started buying guitar magazines. And they talk about, you know, like Clapton and Santana and like Satriani and all these guys. In a lot of cases, I've never heard any of them play.
I know.
You know, but you start formulating this idea of like, these are the people that this is the ultimate. And then you talk to somebody who just like likes what they like, and they're like, that sucks. And you're like, well, how can you say that?
I know. Yeah, it's weird. And there's like hive mind or whatever they call it around music for sure. There's like, and things that even get popular, whether like locally or internationally, it's like probably more about a movement than it is about like, or like the social aspect more than it is about the like music. And maybe there's no difference. Like, I don't know. Yeah, it's tough. Yeah, I remember my first band made a poster that said our band Scurvy Dogs. My friend and his mom had a photocopier in their house, so we took a picture of Eddie Van Halen, wrote, "If you can't tap, you can't play guitar," put Scurvy Dogs as like I couldn't tap. I still can't tap, honestly, but anyway.
Well, I mean, I think you should qualify that statement because, like, I bet you can do it, but doing it well, quote, in air quotes, is a different story.
Sure, I can drop the pick and maybe put on a little bit of a show.
You can press on guitar strings with your fingers.
I remember I used to play hockey when I was a teenager, and we were in PEI, maybe on PEI, and someone had
on PEI.
I know, local parlance. We were like kind of 14, learning how to play guitar, and my friend had a DoD death metal pedal, and I could tap when we had that because it was so high gain that you could.
Right.
Yeah, it was just like, it was awesome.
Every note sounded great.
Yeah.
Death metal.
I think the knobs like grind, kill. You know what I mean? That's what they used to have on those like 90s DoD pedals. But.
Yeah, so they had a grunge pedal too, right?
That's probably like Flannel and Chuck Taylor and like Nirvana. Those are the settings.
They still do have that, because I know I was at Long McQuaid yesterday, like looking at pedals, and I couldn't tell what kind of pedal it was because the names are based on whatever the name of the thing is.
Yeah.
But I have no idea what it does. All right, so what can you tell us about the new record?
All right. So
when's it come out?
November 1st is the date I have.
You have a release date. It's July right now.
Yep.
And November 1st.
Yeah, that's kind of the goal.
Wow.
So the record, it's so we put our last record, we've put out 2 records with Sonic Onion, the legendary Hamilton label, best dudes, absolutely love them, like totally just blown away that they picked us
How
up. It
did
was
you
great.
connect with them?
They had a guy, my dear friend Ryan Ferguson, worked there, and they started as a label, then got into distribution when CDs were still like a super lucrative thing to be dealing in. And then I think he just we had finished a record. We recorded in Halifax at Sound Market, I think it was called. It was Terry Pulliam's studio.
Yeah.
I think it was Sound Market.
On Quinpool.
No, he moved it to Almond.
Oh, did he?
I think.
Oh yeah, I remember.
In that
I was never there, but like used to be below Buckley's.
Yeah,
music.
yeah, we recorded there
Yeah.
too. Anyway, I think we finished it, and I was to the point where I had the test pressings at home, and I was gonna put it out on my own label, and they heard it, and they flew us. They didn't fly us up. They asked us to play their Christmas party, and we flew up and played it, and they're like, "Let's do a record together." It was like awesome, and put out the last record. So the last record, the one previous one's about to come out. Spent a lot of time on it. Recorded in Toronto with Alex Bonenfant, who did like the first 2 Mets records or a bunch of them.
Oh, cool.
And I want to say Crystal Castles, although that guy's canceled now, but he wasn't canceled at the time.
Okay.
I'm trying to sound cool by saying
What does that
canceled.
mean?
I think it means like you're over. The internet has found out you're a dirtbag, and so you're no longer.
Funny.
Yeah, which is good. You should be canceled if you're a dirtbag. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's a good term.
So we recorded there, and then Brad Wood, who like mixed Veruca Salt and Sunny Day Real Estate and
Nice.
Smashing Pumpkins, maybe. He mixed it, and it was like really kind of like went for it, and it was like a great record, and it got nominated for Rock Album of the Year at the ECMAs and
Unreal.
Nova
Who'd you lose
Scotia Music
to?
Week. Adam Baldwin, maybe.
Okay. Makes sense.
Yeah, for sure.
The people who win are always the people. I mean, whatever. This is how I just used to justify my own losses.
Oh, for sure.
And the only reason I asked that question is because you said nominated,
There we go.
and I know the game. I've been there.
Yeah.
Anyhow,
Anyway, there's a lot of like so much effort put into it, and like it's a cool record. I'm like very proud of it. And it was like it did well on radio and like in the States and in Canada, and it was super fun. But it just like at that point, that version of the band had just kind of like the record came out, and I think we only played 2 shows after it came out. We played at the Mod Club in Toronto, opening for Ash, my good friends.
That's you're good friends, but at one time,
Oh, like my idols,
Yeah.
for sure. And they were touring that record I was obsessed with. So it was like their anniversary tour.
unreal, dude.
Yeah, so like I met Brian Wilson the day before in Detroit. Took a bus to Toronto,
How does that happen?
I just bought a VIP ticket to his concert.
Oh, okay, right. Yeah,
Capitalism at its
the
finest.
standard way.
Yeah. Then we played, and then like it's just weird. It was like all that energy just sort of like dissipated. It was like, and it's like everyone likes each other. Nothing.
Yeah.
I mean, you played in bands a lot. There are some things that get built up over time that you're like, I can't do that thing anymore. There's something about it that's like, hey, this is.
You mean
Rosen-
creatively?
Just
or
like being in a van and going to Detroit and playing to 3 people and
no kidding.
like not having Wi-Fi, so you have to talk to each other.
Yep.
And it's like, and it's not. Like, I love every person that was in that.
But I mean, you're gonna drive anybody crazy if you're
For
in
sure.
close proximity for too long. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
And then if it's not popping, just adds to that. Because if you're successful, I mean, that ruins people too. But it's like you get your own hotel room. You like
for sure.
you're not upset because you slept on a floor last night and you're losing money and this was supposed to be your big tour.
Yeah, and that's kind of the position we were in, where it was like our records were doing well at radio. Again, playing a style of music that was not ever going to, it's not going to be number 1 on like the local pop station. But
And
like,
that's not what it's built for.
no,
That's-
but it's like it did well in the markets that it was supposed to do well in.
Yeah.
Like really well in a lot of cases.
Yeah.
Our tours never matched that.
That's what we found too. It's funny because I was going to say it would make sense it would do well because it sounds legit.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
the recordings sound legit. If you're a fan, if that is your style of music,
Yeah.
like you're going to like this band.
For sure.
But we had that similar experience. I remember like talking to my uncle after our band broke up, and he's like, "Oh, you guys were really going for it. You did it," because he would hear us on CBC. And I'd be like, "Yeah, we would drive to Fredericton to make $150 every couple of months."
Yeah. And we were lucky enough to play some amazing shows, and we still will. We're starting to figure things out for this new record. But you do it because you have a compulsion to make music.
Absolutely.
So, all that to say, I think that style of getting in the van, sleeping on someone's floor, it just wasn't working for everybody anymore. And people's lives changed a lot in the course. We started that version of the band had been playing together since 2012 or 2011 maybe. And 5 years of grinding it out is if
a lot.
and if you're not super into it, or if you need to go back to school, or your relationship is in a different stage or something So all to say, the record came out and we were super excited about it, and then it just kind of it didn't even slowly dissipate. It just sort of stopped. Or it just didn't seem to. No one wanted to do anything anymore, and the logistics were getting tough. So all to say, flash forward summer 2017, I was at my friend Tim from Ash's place. I stay there in the summer sometimes in Brooklyn.
Cool.
He was in Brooklyn at that point. He's in Manhattan again. And he left me this old 61 Les Paul Jr. So the SG looks like an SG, but it's called the Les Paul.
Yeah.
And I was there for 3 weeks, and I wrote 4 songs, and I called my friend Michael Catano, who was in North of America, and The Plan and the Holy Shroud and Buck 65, and just legendary kind of drum dude. He was living in Chicago, and a whole bunch of things in my life had changed over the course of that year as well. And I was like, hey, do you want to record some songs? I'll come to Chicago. Do you want to record some songs? We'll go to Electrical Audio, Steve Albini's studio. He's like, yeah, sounds good.
Amazing.
And I called them, and I was like, or I emailed them, and I said, I can do these 3 days. And they're like, randomly we have one of those days open. Sure, you can book that day. And that's how that record started. And it was just kind of to me is the whole thrust behind this record is yeah, sounds good, let's do it. Kind of what I was saying with the other things that I'd done earlier. I was yeah, let's do it. Let's take a risk and rent out this amazing studio and probably not even practice these songs beforehand and see what happens. And we recorded 4 songs there, and it was super, super exciting, and it sounded great. Obviously, that's an amazing place to record drums. And we met Steve Albini, and
how was he?
He was so funny. He has an earring, which is kind of cool. And he was talking about rival magic shops in Chicago and this local beef. And one of the magic shops apparently said no one under the age of 18 permitted. And he's like, well, then who is your fucking audience then? if you're not how many magicians, how many people, you're alienating a lot of your customer base.
Oh, no kidding. Yeah, you were really narrowing your market there.
So we recorded this guy Taylor Hales there. It was amazing. And then it's oh, there's something happening here already. And then the previous summer on this tour, before we kind of before that version of the group sort of dissipated, we played 3 shows in America. We played Amherst, Massachusetts, Boston, and played Cake Shop, Manhattan. Anyway, the show in Amherst was a secret show opening for Dinosaur Jr.
Right. I'd heard Caleb from Valerie was saying something about how did that happen?
So my friend Steven, who plays in the band Kindling, we'd been in touch for a long time, and he said, hey, I remember my last day before summer vacation, he got a text from him. He's Dinosaur Jr. is opening. We're opening for Dinosaur Jr. Haha or something. And I was because their record was about to come out. It had a bicycle shop in this attic, and it was not in the attic, in the top floor. Anyway, that was crazy. One of the craziest days of my life. In a lot of ways, for sure. And I met Jay Mascis' wife, and we followed each other on Instagram, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
If you're into social media, which the kids are these days.
And quality, not quantity, though. That's what I've learned.
And she was super nice. She took our record and gave it to Jay. And then I met the Dinosaur engineer, Justin Pizzoferrato, and he had recorded all the stuff for their reunion albums up to that point, and then opened his own studio called Sone Lab in East Hampton, which is Western Massachusetts. So we got in touch, and I emailed Michael again. I was like, hey, let's do some more songs at this other studio. And he's like, sounds great. And again, showed up. We booked 3 days, 2.5 maybe, and tracked 9 songs, 8 or 9 songs there. And then at that point had 13 or something. We had enough songs for a record, and I wrote a couple more, which we actually tracked at the Sonic Temple later, which is cool too. And I just kind of worked on it quietly for a couple years. And like I have a studio at my house, and like I've built it purposely to like do guitar and vocal recording basically. And then John Agnello, like this famed producer, now my friend, was like, I sent him a message saying, hey, let's talk about mixing. And he was like, I love it. Sure, it sounds good. And he mixed it. And then Greg Calby, who's like one of the most famous mastering engineers in the world, mastered it. So it was like, I can tell you that much. There's 10 songs on it. It sounds amazing. I'm super proud of it. And it's like, it's very open sounding. It's like, the last record was really rigid and kind of tight and like a little bit, I don't want to say the word emo, but we got rejected from Sub Pop because it said it was too emo.
Oh wow!
Yeah. So this one's less emo.
But you pitched it to Sub Pop, man. Good for you.
For sure. We haven't pitched this one anywhere yet, but yeah, it feels good. It's like the songs I'm happy with the whole thing. I think it's a really cool record and it feels great. And
I like looseness in music personally.
Yeah, it's not loose like sloppy. It's just like just not like. We didn't edit, like, I think there were like 2 drum edits in the entire record as opposed to the like gridding everything.
Well, exactly. Yeah, it can breathe.
Yeah. And it was cool. And yeah, I've been listening to it a lot and not totally hating it. So that's different because usually when I'm done, I'm like, oh. Although I hate this moment in between. You probably have this feeling too. You finish something, you're like, it's not out yet. So what do I do in this like interim? Like,
what I find is like I move on too quickly. What the danger of what can happen if I don't completely finish the thing, I stop caring about it.
Really?
And then it's like it'll never come out. Like you at least know when you're gonna put it out. So there's like that's in place.
Well, I have to give myself like we booked mixing sessions. I say we, it's just me really, honestly.
Yeah.
I booked mixing sessions knowing if I don't have a date, I'll never get it done. So there'd be like, my partner played this like show at the Carlton in December, and I booked a mixing date for the day she was playing because I wanted to make sure it was done because it would be Christmas time and like, but I had to stay up all night the night before to like make it happen, even with like 6 months notice or whatever. So, I just need those dates, otherwise I'll never finish anything.
Right.
You have to just let it go eventually. Like I can't. Even now I listen, I'm like, oh, maybe I could have sang that again or played that guitar.
You do
one.
have to.
You just have to like, it's done.
That for me is the biggest advantage of or benefit of like doing a podcast for me has been there's too much stuff. If it was before I had released an episode, I'd like preview because I talked to Daryl about like getting it played on CKDU.
Right.
And then I was like, what would be a good one to pitch? And anyway, I mixed one and I played one for somebody and they're like, why is your voice so much quieter than the other person's? And the reason is like I just didn't like it. But at a certain point you're like, I have to let this go because it's got to come out.
Yeah.
And I can't, if you need to do better next time. But this is what you did.
Yeah, and there's like, even with the mixing of this record, like John mixed a bunch of it before I flew out to New York to mix the final 4 songs, do a few like tweaks, but he was like, he would mix a song in like 3 hours. Like how much better is it going to be if he's like, we can like keep going if you want, but like the differences you're going to hear are not, you're going to hear them. No one else is going to hear them, and
the thing with mixing, and like, now maybe you are much better at it than I am, but like I can mix for levels, but once you get into EQing, like there's nothing that I'm going to suggest that's going to improve, unless it's like I just have a really different vision for the song than a mix engineer. But on a technical level, it's like it's more likely that I'm going to screw it up.
Yeah, I mean, I think we maybe probably come in the same camp of like reading a lot of articles online about recording and mixing and stuff, and that's like, it can be useful.
Yeah,
I've probably learned the most from like being in a room with someone who knows what they're doing and being like, oh, this is not like, it's everyone who hears your record is going to hear it on like kind of an emotional sensory level, and like they don't give a shit which EQ you used on the kick drum. Like they don't care. They want to know like, does the song speak to me or not? And I mean, I think those things are important. Like I love API preamps. I do know that. I like API and Royer microphones on guitar. Like, I know things I like at this point, but it's like you're creating something for people to like listen to, and it's like you want it to sound. You need the technical aspects right to a point, but
Yeah.
you're like half a dB boost on the the vocal is not a game changer for anybody. So
Right.
that's I don't know. I mean, you hear these stories like. I don't know. I mean, I spent a lot of time recording stuff, deleting it, starting again. Like, I cannot count the amount of times I've like recorded a song to the point where it's like finished and said, nope, I'm going to cut out all the guitar and vocals and start it over again. Or like, and that's important to like deliberate what you're doing to a point, but you do have to be like, it's done. And anything I do from this point on, like you kind of get to 90% within the first couple hours.
Yep.
And that last 10%, do you want to spend 3 weeks of your life like stressing out over that last thing? Or you think with records in the 60s, you're mixing like, they mix a whole album in like 2 days or something.
Yeah.
Like, just get it done,
Yeah.
That's kind of what I'm into now.
Yeah. Well, and then like you get it done and push it out and move it on to the next thing. I found like I just don't have a good, I don't know, like head for detail. Like that's not exactly it, but I was actually in studio here yesterday working on a tune of mine with somebody.
Which studio?
It's Dave. I can't even pronounce his last name. Skolton's place.
Okay.
Okay. I don't know what it's called, but anyway, we were working on a song, and I did have some kind of like broad strokes that changed the tone of it. But I'm so useless in that situation. Like I can't watch somebody and really know what they're doing. I've discovered that what I can do, sit on the couch, listen. When I hear something that I want to figure out, that's when I go look.
Yeah, for sure. And like, that's kind of.
But that's just like my own like I don't know, learning style or.
No, for sure. And like, yeah, my learning style. I learn from watching people. Like I'm a.
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess visual learner in that regard, but
yeah,
it's like.
I wish I could. I'm totally tactile. I need to do it in order.
Oh,
to
really? Yeah.
understand it,
If I see someone do something, I can remember it pretty quickly and pretty easily. Yeah, but that was like seeing John work. It was like super quick, and he did it all analog. That was the cool thing on this record too. It's like there are 2 plugins on this whole 3 plugins in this whole record, and 2 of them are from Pro Tools like 4 or something. Like they're like super super old like $5 plugins.
Why though? Like how do those even end up in the?
I don't know. He used this Mooger Fugger delay plugin that was like. It comes with Pro Tools,
right.
And because I had it on Pro Tools 5, I think it was like $100, and it was too much money at the time. I couldn't buy it, but
Yeah.
And then he used this like Leslie simulation plugin that is $5 now, which I did buy when I came home. But he did the rest of it analog, and he would reamp stuff, and it was just like super exciting to watch. But he mixed 4 songs in 2 days, and like they sound amazing. They're super super amazing, and they sound exciting and professional and. Yeah, it's like it was exhilarating to be there. I was kind of like super sick with a sinus infection, so it was not that fun in that regard. But,
right.
But it was like, yeah, it's just cool to see him get it done. And he's made a lot of amazing records, so he knows what he's doing. So it was cool.
Yeah, and cool to watch somebody like that work too. And interesting, like the thing of working quickly. It's easy to not get too precious with it when it's somebody else's music, but it's funny, like. I always find it's interesting watching, and it's not something I do a lot. It's something I'm just thinking of now. But like, you see a video of like a painter working, because to me, like every brush stroke is a commitment. But you watch somebody who's just like they're just like splashing paint all over the canvas, and like I just wouldn't be able to deal with that. It would drive me crazy.
Yeah, I mean, there's, like I said, I'm acting like I'm so cool and like everything. We mixed it in 3 hours. It was like totally chill. But it was like, I mean, I spent a lot of time before that. Making sure everything was as good as I could. Like I pushed myself to a limit. Yeah, but it's cool. Like you have to let it go. Like I had to let it go to let him mix it, and he had to let it go to let someone master it, and then I'll send it to people, and we'll see what they think.
Yeah. So do you have a title?
Yeah, it's called Dream or Don't Dream.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I had that title. Like I wrote it down on a sheet of paper a year and a half ago, and I just like. It's like a tattoo. I've never hated it. I'm like, so it must be a good one. Then if I never hated it. Yeah.
That's a good test for that too. Of like, Am I sick of this idea yet?
Yeah, and I mean the grammar's kind of bad in it, but I kind of like that as well, even though I'm an English teacher. But
Are you gonna get fired because of that
I
title?
don't think so.
Really?
I hope not. I hope not.
What if the English police find out?
I'm pretty tight with my boss, so I don't think I think he'll see the artistry in it, not just the glaring mistake. Maybe
Not
the
just the
grammar's not that bad.
syntax.
The syntax is not amazing on it, honestly, but I just feels like, yeah, I wrote it down. I was like, oh, that sounds cool, and
Yeah.
yeah. So I played everything on it. Besides the drums, Michael Catano played drums, and then Jay Mascis from Dinosaur Jr. played guitar on it, which is pretty crazy.
It's huge.
It's crazy, crazy, crazy.
What did he play, or do you want to reveal that?
Yeah, so the song, it's called Little League right now, but I'm probably going to change the title because originally I wrote it, the opening of it sounded like Little League by Captain Jazz. So I called it Little League
I didn't know that too.
just for a placement title. That's what it is right now, but I'll change it. And he played 2 solos on it. Justin Pizzaferato, the guy who engineered a bunch of the stuff, set that up, and like I'm endlessly grateful to him for that.
Cool.
We went to Jay's house during the recording actually, and like hung out there for a bit, and he was like, excuse me, he was like handing me guitars. Jay like famously doesn't say a whole lot, but
Yeah.
like it was like a little awkward the first. His wife is Louisa, is super friendly and like outgoing and super nice. Then he got warmed up and just started handing me guitars to play. So I got to play like the Strat or the Tellys he used to play in the '90s and stuff. And,
Amazing.
yeah, saw his studio and it was rad. So
Pictures of eyeballs and stuff.
yeah, lots
Really?
of Mishka t-shirts. I feel like he's wearing like a communist t-shirt, like a hammer and sickle or something. There's something funny he was wearing that was, and pink Stan Smith sneakers, which I thought was kind of awesome too.
He's got a cool sense of style, man. It's like because the ingredients are out there, but it's like it's very deliberate somehow.
Yeah, we played when we recorded at Sonic Temple. We did a Dinosaur Jr. cover show the night before. We played at the Seahorse, and I had the long wig on and the Adidas track jacket.
Nice.
Yeah. But it's like, yeah, it's
That
like,
is wild, man.
it's fashion forward, I think, is what we would call it.
Yes. Yeah, I would have to agree with that. I think. I don't know. Or maybe I'm just saying that, not thinking too much about it. That's super cool. So are you touring or are you putting the record out?
Yeah, I think. Yeah, we'll definitely play shows. So it's
Yeah.
Michael Catano and Jim McAlpine from North America and Vikings, Holy Shroud, playing bass.
Cool.
We just played Sled Island a couple weeks ago.
Right.
And it's kind of starting to like ramp up a little bit. And first time we played any of the songs live, and it went super well. And that version of the band is good. And those guys are like total pros and like super. They know what the game is and like want to be in it. And yeah, it was great. So we'll tour. I don't know what it'll look like. I mean, we've done the U.S. Eastern Seaboard a bunch of times and the Golden Horseshoe in Canada a bunch of times. I kind of think this time we might focus on Europe a bit more. 'Cause we went there, went to the UK, I guess, a while ago, and it's time to go back. Yeah, and figuring out, I mean, I think some of the songs are like a little more radio ready than others. So we'll like figure which ones we'll send to people. And we've had like good luck with satellite radio and Radio 3 and stuff. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's going to be good. So proud of it. It's a great record.
Cool. Well, and part of it too is like you realize as you get. I remember having this realization. At a certain point, it's like even though my band has never been like super profitable, it's such an amazing gateway to things I get to do.
Totally.
So like
Because you guys got to play that huge waterfront Dartmouth show, right?
Yeah. We played Alderney Landing.
Yeah.
And like to get to go to Europe, like.
Did you guys go to Europe?
We went to the UK. Yeah,
No
we did
way.
a couple festival, and we went to Germany once too.
No way. Amazing.
Yeah. And like we had to come up with the money, but you can get grants, and it's an excuse to go that I wouldn't have made it happen.
Well, that was like, especially early on, that was a big deal because my parents weren't like big travelers at that point. So like going to Montreal for the first time was like mind-boggling, and like people are speaking a different language, and why is everyone talking about bagels all the time? It's
Right.
It's just seeing different cities was super fun, and then I spent a while like going to New York every summer just to like have a different experience. But yeah, touring was the gateway to all that for sure.
Totally. And the thing that I always loved about it too is like you get to go visit people you wouldn't otherwise get to see, and you can see them all in one trip.
Yeah, and I made like some amazing friends, like especially in Brooklyn, and like we played with a band there, Adult Dude. They're not a band anymore, but I've stayed friends with those guys, and it's like just amazing to have people that you can connect with and nerd out about stuff with, and like share experiences with that I probably wasn't going to get at my teaching job. You know what I mean? So yeah, it was fun, super fun. I love it. What do you ever talk about your band on here?
Which one?
Glory, Glory.
Like in passing, I would say.
Can I ask you a question about Glory,
Please
Glory?
do, yeah.
So I know this is old news. Maybe this is not a hot take. I'm just curious. You guys were like making a record with like a pretty big dude in Brooklyn, weren't you?
With Justin, yeah.
So what happened there?
We did an EP. So what happened really was we rushed the thing. Like the first one that we did with him was we were working with somebody who was outside of our circle of friends for the first time. Prior to that, it had always been like somebody we know is recording it, mixing it, releasing it, blah, blah,
Right.
blah. 2011, we'd put out an EP. And then we're kind of like things cooled off for a bit. We were workshopping stuff. I applied for grants unsuccessfully and finally got approved like the summer that I also moved to New Brunswick in 2013.
Right.
And so before I went, it was like, okay, let's get these songs down. And the kind of musical direction was turning a corner, but the motivation really was like, wow, we got some money. Let's go record.
Sure.
So we did that, and then it was Tim Jim, who we recorded with,
Right.
his place at the Shed. He suggested, he's like, you guys should get some, like, find some pro guy and hire somebody to mix it. Like, don't just use one of your friends this time. I think it could be worth your while. So we kind of looked around at different people, and from a short list, Adam was really the guy who was like, no, I want to get this guy.
Yeah.
And knew him from doing Vampire Weekend stuff.
Right.
So he had mixed all the Vampire
Coming back
Weekend.
full circle to Vampire
Totally.
Weekend.
Honestly, I had never listened to Vampire Weekend before that point. I'd written them off as something I probably wouldn't like.
It was just like peak internet is what it felt like.
Yeah.
Like I can't spend this much time on the internet refreshing Stereo Gum or something.
Exactly. That's what I found too. It's like, yeah, I just don't care about whatever band I'm supposed to listen to because these people said so.
Right. Anyway, sorry to digress.
Yeah, no, it's fine. It was around the time of the Modern Vampires of the City album. So that I got pretty into that afterwards, but we, to our surprise, he agreed to do it, and we could afford him because we had like checked with different people, and some of them
Yeah.
we definitely couldn't afford.
Yeah. Had that conversation. That's not a fun conversation. to
No,
have.
it's not. We're not at that level. Wow.
I'm gonna
But you are.
remortgage my house so I can
Yeah, so I can get this song mixed, let
Yeah,
alone this
mix.
record.
Yeah.
But anyway, he did it, and it wound up being a really good thing for us. So we worked with people locally to
Right.
get it in shape, and then he mixed it, and that wound up like injecting some new life into the band. That's where like all of the bit of success those couple of years we had came from. Like that's
Right.
how we wound up going to Great Escape and
Yeah.
to Germany or whatever. And then the following year, it was time for something new. We were, again, working with business people, best of intentions, but it's like you need some new content. This is old news now. It came
Right.
out last year. And partially also, like, I think we should have worked on singles, but it was like commitment to, like, no, we've got a bunch of songs. Anyway, we put out 3 songs that were essentially half-baked.
Right.
We rearranged them in the studio for the better, but they weren't the strongest material that the band could
Right.
have come up with. Part of the reason is that I was living in another province. People had other things going on. We were, focusing on the internet and
Yeah.
live
Buying
and-
Facebook ads.
Yeah, kind of. And then, the songs that were on the first EP were really the strongest ones that we
Right.
had done. And these ones were also songs that we were into but weren't as thought out. And, we gave Justin, the producer, a bunch to choose from, and these were the ones he picked. But we recorded it over 5 days. And I think we just honestly didn't have enough time with those songs, or maybe we needed to have different songs or something.
Right.
So we pushed it for a year, sunk a lot of money into it. It didn't do what we wanted. And
Yeah.
that was it, basically. So the thing that happened, because this like ties together a bunch of things that we were talking about. When I moved in with my girlfriend in 2012, it was the first time I had some, because prior to that, I was working evenings and living with a bunch of dudes, and I would come home from work.
Awesome.
Yeah, I would come home from work and like go on the computer and do like band internet stuff until probably about midnight, because I was just so stressed out about the fact that we weren't further ahead in our careers. And then finally, you live with roommates, they don't care. And then I moved in with somebody who like wanted me to hang out with them in the evening. So all of a sudden that became less of a priority. And I realized that I was getting totally burnt out on doing all that stuff. Up until that point, I had been the member of the band who was really driving that side of things.
Right.
And it was always based on, it would just stress me out that we might not be as far along as we could be because this stuff was holding us back. No one else seemed to care, so I guess I'm going to do it. Not because I love it, but because...
Out of necessity.
Yeah, like, or a perceived necessity anyway. Because also, it's like you read all those articles online and people are like, you need to be doing this, this, and this, and this. And I'm like, we're not doing any of them. So, it's like totally naive. The same as the Guitar Magazine thing.
Totally,
where it's like, like... You gotta know Clapton. Like I don't care about Eric Clapton. I don't even have anything against him, really. I just don't care. But
it's a time and a place, and we were not there for. We were there for MTV Unplugged Clapton. That's kind of my like gateway to Clapton.
The reason I hated the Rolling Stones forever, and now I love hate the Stones.
They've got some jams. They've got a few jams.
They have some great music that I really love. But so anyhow, that was a time when I really had reconnected with like actually enjoying playing music myself. Realized that I needed to step back from this other part of it that I had just taken on because I was worried about it, but it wasn't healthy. It wasn't ever what I got into it for in the first place. And then we moved away in 2013. And then we'd put out this record and we were like trying to play with loops and that really wasn't working. And then we decided to add a new band member. So we had Javo for a while.
Yeah.
And
what was wrong with the loops was just like technically it was too hard to do live.
Sucked. Yeah. Well, it was more of a like, you got to do this, like figure it out. And like, so I was like playing a keyboard. I
saw pictures of that. I remember you playing keyboards. Yeah.
Yeah. There was one song that had an important keyboard part and an important guitar part, and we were a three-piece.
Right.
And so what do you do with that? For a while, we were like, I was trying to play keyboard and drums and then loop the keyboard part while I was playing drums, and it just was not working.
Right.
And you're doing it through monitors. And so anyway, Javo couldn't stick around because he had other band commitments. So we got Nick Jones, who was great because he was like 5 years younger than the rest of us probably. And he was really into like getting the band organized in those kind of business ways. Because especially like he came up through like the hardcore and like metal scene where there's like a sort of branding that accompanies that. But I was no longer around.
Right.
So he was the guy, like he took on that role. And then it became like Adam, to his great credit, will be like, well, I don't know what I'm doing and I don't want to do this, so he will find somebody who will do it. And for a while it was me.
Right.
And then if I'm not around, he got people who work in that field. But anyhow, we did that and we're touring in Nick's van, and they were bugging me for 3 years. When are you moving back? 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 We finally moved back, and I'm standing in my new apartment in Halifax. All right, I'm here, guys. Let's really push this thing forward. I get a call, and it's Nick, and he says, yeah, I think I'm going to step down. And I was like, what do you mean? Like, you're going to, like, do less? He's like, no, I'm out. I'm like, quit. It's like, okay. So now we're at the end of an EP release cycle. The next step is we got to put out some kind of new thing. The EP didn't do what we wanted it to.
Right.
We had pitched it to radio. We got no traction. Things had cooled off locally when we did So Long. Things were, and it's the classic thing where going away makes you more interesting.
Yeah.
Us going to the UK, the biggest benefit of that was that it made us cooler locally.
Really?
Yeah. We had like ideas of getting signed over there, and that didn't happen. But locally we were like a buzzier band, but 2 years later it had pretty much dissipated,
Yeah.
or to the degree because there's so much smoke and mirrors involved where you're like, yeah, like this is like CBC will play us, we've gone from complaining about the coast won't touch us to like now they will just report on whatever we do.
Right.
But you also discover it's like, yeah, I mean, our band makes, I don't know if we would even have been making $1,000 a month collectively at that
Right,
point,
right. Yeah. Yeah, it's tough, and it's hard not to feel like resentment on some level. I don't know. There's a whole, it's like a relationship or something where you just like, if you're committed to it, it's like you're like,
Well,
why
the thing that's
is this
tough
not working?
Yeah, and the thing that sucks too is like, well, now I'm mad at I'm annoyed with my friend because they didn't submit this form that they
Right.
said and then I had to go fix it.
Yeah, yeah. It's tough. I mean, and it's like thankless work. Like, I mean, no one's saying like, you should play in a band, right? No one's like, I'm so glad you play music. There's no one who's, I mean, occasionally a fan might.
Oh, they do. I mean, yeah, some people do.
But like generally in your day-to-day life, like no one's like, Chad, I'm glad that like you won't get a sensible haircut and like you have 15 guitars. Like that's really great. I'm glad you're keeping flying the flag for that.
Hey, man, I will say I'm glad. I'll
thanks,
put it on the record.
I'm glad you're still paradiddling away on the on the traps. Anyway, yeah, I don't know. It's tough. It's just all tough, and you got to love it. And I think managing expectations is like a big part of it. And
It's the key. I think it really is.
And he's still like, I don't feel any different now when I pick up a guitar than I did when I was like 13. I was like, oh my God, I have an orange distortion pedal like Kurt Cobain. Like my life has changed forever. And it probably was in a way, but
Yeah.
I don't really feel that different now. And I still am super excited and like, I got goosebumps listening to the master when I heard it. You know what I mean? It's like all the same things that I still love. And we will have a plan to release it. And it's going to be great. And yeah, I'm excited. And I will make another record after this one too.
Yeah, and you play the shows that you want to play as opposed to the grinding it out ones.
Yeah, I mean, we'll grind it out a bit for a while, you know?
Sure, yeah. I mean, that is part of it too, and that's honorable. And but I guess what I mean is like the tension that comes from the, what am I doing in Kitchener on a Wednesday? No one here cares that I'm here.
Right. Oh yeah, that. Well, again, it's like the managing expectations.
Yeah.
Like, we probably will play a couple of crappy shows and probably some great ones.
But that can also be great too, where you'd be like, I'm here because it's awesome. I get to play a show.
Totally.
Yeah. I know, man. I've even been reminding myself of that recently because, again, like I played the Seahorse 3 times in the last month. I live a 4-hour drive from the Seahorse. I used to live a 4-minute drive from the Seahorse.
Yeah.
And, there were times when I was like, why am I doing all of this? I can't, like, why, you grumble about it, but you got to remember, like, there was a time when I would have given anything to be able to get booked at the Seahorse.
Oh, yeah, for sure. For sure. And I think it's like, I don't know, if you're like kind of, how do I want to say this in a way that makes sense? It's just like, how many people do I know were playing guitar when I was 13 and like buying CDs and like wanting to be in bands, and how many of those people are still in bands? Like, not many, right?
Yep.
It's like, so just like work your ass off and write your best songs, and that will work for someone.
And if you feel it, you're gonna do it because you have to.
For sure.
Regardless.
Yeah, it's gonna be, because it's like that author Paul Auster says, he's like, it's one of my favorites. He's like, I don't have a choice. I have to write. That's what I do. Like, I just have to do it. It's like how I feel like writing songs. Like, I have to do it. So I might as well like record them and put them on a record. And
well, you should, like, probably psychologically. I mean, that's what I discovered, especially after the band broke up. So I was like, well, maybe I'll just do something else. But I realized, like, even if I never make another cent playing music, like, I still need to do it. Yeah,
and I mean, I think there are unrealistic expectations for a lot of people, especially maybe in Nova Scotia, who think, it's all about funding. Funding is critical. Like, has helped my band like immensely for sure.
Same.
But I don't know. There's just like,
it's not the whole game.
Yeah, there's like all kinds of things to do, and like I went and got a master's degree in the last 2 years while I was recording this record. There's all kinds of things to do,
Yeah.
and everything is good. You know, for once, everything is good.
All right, I think those are words to sign off on, if any have ever been. Thanks so much, man.
This was super fun. We didn't talk about on a computer somewhere. I have a file of us playing "Semi Charmed Life" by Third Eye Blind,
and rapping
the
over
Chad
it.
and Chicky show, and it probably has not aged super well, but I do have that somewhere, and I will send that to you.
Yeah. We discovered that, probably any song in 4/4, but
that one especially seemed.
Yeah, well, and like rap lyrics too will work because there's no the melody doesn't conflict with the changes.
Yeah.
They're just we're like, whoa, this song works, and this song works, and this song works.
That was what was that group that did all the mashups? That was kind of their thing. It's like a DJ sort of thing. Anyway, we were ahead of the curve.
Danger Mouse?
No, something else. I can't remember what it was. Anyway, we were ahead of the curve, is what I'm trying to say.
Obviously.
Listen to NoFX and Pantera and Third Eye Blind, apparently.
All right. Little Easter egg for my brother there. My brother Micah, in this day and age, a Third Eye Blind convert. He hipped me to a recent Joy Division cover they did. Not worth your while. It's whatever the first song off of Unknown Pleasures is called. I can never remember the names, but the catchy one. Thanks so much to Chad for being here. Thank you, the listener, for listening. Hope you enjoyed this one. I thought it was a great time. It was really nice. I'm recording this the day before I release it, and I hadn't listened to this since I'd done it. I've had it sitting on my hard drive for, 8 months now, probably. And it's nice. It's nice hearing, in some sense, a more carefree version of yourself. Anyhow, hope this has brought a little bit of joy to your current whacked out routine. I know it has to mine. And I'll see you next week. Who knows? I don't know what the future is going to be of this season. I don't have a number of episodes or anything mapped out. And basically what I'm going to do and what I've done in the past is just to keep on doing it for as long as it's sustainable. So we'll see how long that is. Enjoy it while it lasts. You never know how much time you got. All right. Show notes are at learndrums.ca. You can check out Kestrels' new album on Friday, July 10th, wherever records are sold, streamed. You know how it works. You're smart. All right. See you next week. Bye-bye.